Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil, the Conquistadork. It's finally happened. This year, it's almost over. It's been a long one. I found that almost everything sucked about 2016, except for the games, and it's lucky for me that that's the industry I currently attach myself to, like a remora on the underside of a shark. This is my business. So, without further ado, this is my top 10 games of 2016. This one took me a minute because there were so many good games. I was actually tinkering with the idea of doing a top 20 list, which seemed a little much ultimately. I was very happy ultimately with the top 10 list I put together. Happy with that. I think it's gonna be good. I think you'll like it. Let's find out what you think. So without further ado, onwards to my 2016 top 10. Yeah. Number 10, Overwatch. For some gamers, this might seem a little low on the totem pole. But if you know the sort of gamer I am, the fact that it made my top 10 at all speaks tomes about the quality of Overwatch. Overwatch is fun. Before it's anything else, before it's a multiplayer shooter, before it's a gaming culture sensation, before it's the perfect foundation for your weird fanfic, it's just plain fun. And I say that as a person who has never really enjoyed multiplayer competition. I've always been into games for story and experience before the need to defeat other players. But Overwatch has a way of sucking you in. It has a massive cast of colorful characters, a sense of humor, and it feels great to play. It's the sort of thing that can appeal to both the casuals and the hardcore, and there's something special about that. For the first time in my gaming life, I could approach my multiplayer enthusiast coworkers and say, "Hey guys, I have a main!" It's Roadhog, by the way. And it says a lot about Blizzard that they were able to release a massive cast of characters with only the most basic ideas about their backgrounds and still somehow cause us all to fall in love with them. And as they slowly weave the tapestry together, some people get angry and some feel vindicated. But all of that comes from the fact that people feel connected to this game, its world, and the people within it. Whether you're interested in becoming an esports champion or just playing with friends and collecting skins, Overwatch is an experience that just about anyone can find some love for, and it belongs on this list. Number 9, Owlboy. Owlboy was one of those pleasant surprises of the year. They say there's no such thing as an overnight success, that the explosive popularity or triumph that seems to come out of the blue typically follows long years of struggle and hard work. And in the case of Owlboy, that turned out to be absolutely true. In development for 9 long years, the attention to detail and charm of D-Pad Studios' puzzle platformer took most everyone off guard. And with its beautiful world and fun cast of characters, Owlboy gets you invested in its story, and it does it fast. And I can't say enough about the brilliant attention given to the graphics and animation. If Owlboy has done anything, it has set the bar for retro-style games in the future. Like Shovel Knight before it, Owlboy makes it clear that a pixelated style is just that, a style. What it's not is an excuse to create and design sprites and backgrounds as quickly and as lazily as possible, which sadly seems to be the name of the game for all of the shovelware and indie time wasters that have been clogging the arteries of Steam in the past few years. If Owlboy had been a less complicated or engaging title, it still would have served a valuable purpose as a watermark for future indie games to reach, visual-wise. But the fact that it has a wonderfully sweet story, characters with pathos, intriguing level design, and an entertaining gameplay style makes it something truly memorable and unique. Number 8, Pony Island. Pony Island was released on January 4th of 2016, so it would have been an easy one to forget about for a year-end top 10 list like this one. It would have been easy to forget, that is, if it were a lesser game. But with its frightening atmosphere and mindfuck sensibilities, Pony Island is the most memorable title in the "oh sweet Jesus, the devil has taken over my computer and I have to combat him by hacking the game" genre. A very exclusive genre, I might add. It only takes a few minutes into this endless runner to realize that something is very, very wrong, and creator Daniel Mullins uses our lowered expectations to his full advantage. Whether by coincidence or design, this was just one of many fourth wall breaking games that came out this year. But the creepiness and eerie horror of Pony Island make it one of the best and most memorable. It's amazing how much atmosphere Mullins was able to get into such a simplistic style. If Owlboy is an example to indie designers showing that there's no excuse not to actually try when it comes to creating your visuals, then Pony Island proves visuals are definitely not everything a game needs to be great. Number 7. XCOM 2. The highly anticipated sequel to 2012's reboot of a strategy classic, there are many ways in which XCOM 2 could have screwed it all up. It could have been just another rehash of the original. It could have tweaked the game too far in the direction of world building or turn-based strategy. It could have done any number of things that game developers seem to do all the time when it comes to recapturing the lightning in the bottle that made their original so popular. But Firaxis did none of those things. Instead, it polished and fine-tuned all of the things that people loved about the original. It nurtured those aspects. And then it built onto those in a direction that made XCOM 2 its own game. The addition of melee combat, new aliens, new soldier types, and a bleaker campaign storyline gave players what they wanted and then some. It was not without bugs. Hell, some of the bugs were the same ones that had plagued the original XCOM. But the intense difficulty, new take on HQ base building, and the outstanding new options for turn-based combat mean that I will be coming back to play it between newer games on a regular basis through 2017. Number 6. Civilization 6. Another sequel to a franchise that I've played since childhood, Civilization 6 is exactly the sort of sequel Civ 5 deserved. And that is easier said than done. Think about it. In the years since its release in 2010, Firaxis developed 2 full expansions for Civ 5, both of which overhauled huge chunks of how the game was played. And that's not even considering the countless map packs, scenarios, playable civilizations, and other assorted DLC that comes with a game of that size. By the time Civilization 6 was released, just about everything had been addressed. Religion, diplomacy, art. What was a new iteration to do? Just slap a new coat of paint on the same game and charge $60? Firaxis went with no. Instead, they rebuilt a number of ways the game itself is played, adding intriguing additions like districts and a civics tree, along with additions that maybe I'm not so crazy about, like impermanent workers. I paid for you, you little assholes, and you wimp out after building like 3 fucking lousy farms, you bastards, and... Excuse me. But aside from some suggestive likes and dislikes, there is no doubt that Civ 6 is a very complete sequel. Like XCOM 2, it takes the highly addictive and fun qualities of the original, while also stitching together a series of new elements that makes it unquestionably its own game. It's a worthy successor to one of the greatest game franchises of all time, and it's going to keep me muttering one more turn until I inevitably pass out at my keyboard, dehydrated and suffering from scurvy. Number 5. Inside. I nearly missed Inside. A plethora of outstanding games and a demanding professional life meant that a quietly disturbing platformer like Inside was in real danger of passing right under my nose. And knowing what I know now, I would never have forgiven myself for that. Playdead's Inside takes the grim, silent storyline of 2010's Limbo and expands upon it, while still telling you almost nothing. But there is definitely a story here, and it is excellent. I believe that Inside belongs on any Best of 2016 list based on the flawless execution of telling a story without actually telling it. There's no narrator, no audio logs, no speaking of any kind, and yet you feel engaged. You empathize with your protagonist and grow to feel his pain, his fears. And there is no limit of things to be afraid of in Inside. Number 4. Firewatch. This one needed to go right next to Inside based on its superior storytelling. And while Inside's unique expression of plot is fascinating in its muteness, the development of the very talkative relationship between Henry and Delilah was one of the most satisfying, funny, and heart-wrenching experiences I had all year. Too active to really be called a walking simulator, and too simple to be called a full-on adventure title, Firewatch exists within that delicate place between a game in which you act and a game in which you are acted upon. What I mean is that there are puzzles to solve and gameplay to take part in, but all of that acts as a means to the story's end. And it works beautifully. By the completion of this game, I felt sadness, paranoia, fear, and laughter all in equal measure. It is no small feat to create such relatable and lovely characters in such a small expanse of time, but Campo Santo pulled it off. More than any of the other games on this list, I felt like I knew these characters. I felt where they were coming from and wanted to learn more about them. Firewatch allows for a level of emotional attachment that I found absolutely euphoric. And from the moment I finished my first playthrough, there was no doubt that it was going to be in my top games of 2016. Number 3. Doom. Holy shit, Doom. Doom, 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 Doom.
I gotta sing the Doom song now! Doom, 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 Doom!
Doom wasn't really on my radar at first. I respect id and the first-person shooter and everything that it's brought to gaming, but between the lowered expectations that the community at large had been feeling and a number of other games on my priority list, Doom didn't really excite me. I didn't expect it to be that much. A drop in the bucket of nostalgia reboots that seem a dime a dozen these days. And I was wrong. Good lord, I was wrong. Essentially what Bethesda and id did was get together and say, what do gamers like? Well, there are two sides to the coin. Some gamers only care about the gameplay, the opportunity to cruise into a beautiful world and blow up bad guys. And the other gamers prefer a detailed story with character progression and pages upon pages of lore. And those two gaming giants got together and said, well, how about we give them both? Doom is a perfect storm of gore, gristle, and exploding shotgun shells. It feels incredible to play. There is weight behind every action you make, every shot you fire, every glory kill you rack up. But behind that is a deep, dark story, and lots of pieces of lore if you're interested in it. You could tear through the game, shredding demons as you go, and never fully realize the true extent of the hell on earth scenario you've inherited. And that is the correct way to play Doom. Or you could stop at every piece of lore you pick up and analyze in great detail the firestorm around you. Spend hours reading the well-written background information that you amass as you go. And that is the correct way to play Doom as well. In an age where we ask ourselves constantly, what are games, and what purpose do games serve, we are blessed with experiences like this one. Bethesda and id have come together and said, this game isn't for gamers who just want to blow stuff up, and this game isn't for gamers who just want to read hours of flavor text. This game is for gamers. Period. Number 2. Darkest Dungeon. Last year, I resisted the urge to put Darkest Dungeon in my Best of 2015 video. I resisted for 2 reasons. First, it was an early access game at the time, and I wanted to avoid that whenever I could. Second, because I knew that at full release, it was going to make it straight to the top of my Best of 2016 list. And while it didn't quite make it to the very top of the mountain, Darkest Dungeon belongs in every gamer's library. What can I say about it that hasn't already been said? The Lovecraftian grimdark atmosphere is flawless. The unforgivable difficulty level makes a mockery of you and your frustration. This game takes your tears and puts them in a soup and feeds it back to you. And you will come back for spoonful after spoonful because it's Darkest fucking Dungeon. Everything from Wayne June's narration to the almost Ralph Steadman-esque style of the art direction makes Darkest Dungeon a game that you can't get out of your head. It needs to be played. It demands it. And there's an expansion coming out next year. And finally, number 1, Stardew Valley. Hear me out when I say that Stardew Valley belongs right next to Darkest Dungeon. Because in many ways, Stardew Valley is the anti-Darkest Dungeon. Where the latter offers only madness and well-deserved frustration at your best plans gone to pot, Stardew Valley offers bright, cheerful exploration and expansion, along with rewards for whatever work you put into it. A spiritual successor to the Harvest Moon franchise, Stardew Valley is sort of like what would happen if a farming game had artistic designers like Fred Rogers. Sure, things get hard, and times get really tough, but you can get through it. You got beat up by those slimes in that cave? Well, get yourself some sleep, my friend, pick up your sword, and try again in the morning. Want to see your farm grow to an epic scale season after season? All you need is water, fertilizer, and a little elbow grease. Maybe you'd just rather spend the day fishing. Jesus, wouldn't we all? Grab your rod and reel and let's go. I put an obscene amount of time into this game. Let's put it this way. I started binge-watching Friends on Netflix when I began Stardew Valley, and didn't stop until it was over. That's 10 seasons worth of beets, asparagus, and pumpkins. But it wasn't just the satisfaction of building and gardening and fishing that brought me back session after session. There's something special about Stardew Valley, something I almost can't put my finger on. It seems to me that beyond its colorful visuals, great soundtrack, and fun gameplay, Stardew Valley says to the player, you want to make something great happen? Well, let's get started. It's as easy as that. And I think we could all use a little more of that in our lives. Stardew Valley, my number 1 game of the year.
Hey, Daddy, don't sink a little drinky. Daddy gets side down blue. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you.